Hi, my name is Amy Shaw and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm really excited to get this started. I'm excited about where it might go, and I have some ideas. So I'm going to share those with you in a few minutes, but first I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a writer. I've been writing my entire life. I can remember being 8-9 years old, sitting at the kitchen table and taking like 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, folding them up and stapling them and making that into a little book. I would write a little story, and I would even illustrate it with, the rainbows and the butterflies and the suns and the whole 9 yards. And that quickly progressed into poetry, and poetry is something that's actually stuck with me my entire life. I do still write poetry. It's something that I have consistently done throughout my entire life. When I was 16, I actually started college, and so my sort of creative writing got sort of squelched down by the rigorous academic environment and the need to learn how to contain myself into academic writing. So I have a master's degree. I spent a good amount of time doing academic writing. I wasn't really interested in that time in going into creative writing or English or anything like that, so I actually majored in psychology. My goal was to help people. So I majored in psychology. In graduate school, I ended up, it's a really long story, but I ended up in criminal justice. During graduate school, I contributed to a lot of academic textbooks and encyclopedias, and of course wrote my own thesis and that type of thing. So my writing skill was really honed down into that sort of very succinct, clear, academic style writing. But in 2003, I was diagnosed with stage 3C inflammatory breast cancer. I had a metastatic recurrence in 2006. So at that point, I had to stop working, and I haven't worked since. I'm an 11-year cancer survivor now, as of today, and I'm still in treatment. So every 3 weeks I still go and I sit down in the chemotherapy chair. I had a portacath right here in my chest where they stick the needle in and I get the infusion. I'm sure there's going to be 1,000,001 people that want to offer me advice about, how to cure cancer and all kinds of different things that I can do and this and that. Believe me, in 11 years I've been exposed to all of that. I'm not really inviting or interested in that. I have my own ideas about that, and for right now, I'm staying in chemotherapy because that's what's working for me. It's actually bought me some life, some very valuable life. I'm actually in the 5% survival category, so whatever I've been doing up to this point is working for me, and I'm okay with that. But as a result of going through cancer treatment at such a young age, I was 30 years old when I was diagnosed, I started writing because that's what I do. I'm a writer. It's my sort of main source of self-expression. And so I started emailing these writings to my close friends and family, and they were just so inspired by them. They began forwarding those emails to their extended family and their friends, and it just kept going on and on until the email list was, several hundred people, and I had people contacting me that I had never even met before, telling me, how inspiring. And so I started getting a lot of people telling me that I should write a book and that I should make these available online. So I did. In 2004, I moved from a sort of email format to actually a blog format. And this was when blogging was just starting. There wasn't a lot of people doing it. So it was kind of a novel concept, a really cool concept, to sort of reach out and get a mass larger amount of people. And so I did that. I started a blog. That blog has moved to different domains over the course of years for different reasons, but it does still exist. I contribute to it maybe once a year, once every couple of years. The reason why I don't, I'm kind of in this like coasting phase of my cancer treatment, and also the writing itself. I tend to write more words than I write less, so unfortunately it's very long, demanding process. That type of writing is very emotional for me. I actually start working on a piece about 6 months before I actually am able to sit down and put it all together and make it pretty. So I don't contribute to that project as much, but it is still available online, all the old material and then any new stuff that I'm writing. But it was through that process that people started coming forward and telling me I should write. Now, at the time I sort of scoffed because I feel like a cancer memoir is not going to be anything that really sells. People aren't probably going to walk into a bookstore or browse online and stumble on a cancer memoir and be interested in reading that, regardless of how good the writing is. And you know, we've all been touched by cancer in some way, whether we've personally gone through it, or we have a loved one, or we know of somebody that's gone through it. And so if you've already been through it, it's kind of like, why do I want to read somebody else's story when I have my own story? So I just wasn't interested in writing a cancer memoir. But a few years later, a very good friend of mine came to me and said, well, you know, you're such a good writer. Have you thought about writing fiction? Honestly, I hadn't thought about writing fiction because I don't read fiction. So when I tell other writers that, they always just, don't tell anybody that you don't read fiction. Definitely don't tell literary agents that you don't read fiction. Well, you know what? I don't read fiction. I'm sorry. I have a personal library that's probably 250 or more books in it, and less than 10 of them are fiction. All the rest of them are obviously nonfiction. They're textbooks and various genres of nonfiction. And so that's where I've drawn a lot of my inspiration from in my life is reading nonfiction. And so not knowing that much about fiction and not being a fiction reader, I just wasn't really confident that even though I know I'm a good writer, I wasn't confident that that was the type of writing that I could do. Well, I sat and I pondered it for about 6 months, and it took me about 6 months of like thinking of different sort of stories and whatnot to actually be able to hone it down to something that I might actually be interested in writing in a fictional basis. So out of that process, really what I discovered about myself is I can write fiction. How good I'm at it, I don't know. My readers are going to have to decide. So what type of fiction do I write? Well, I write literary fiction. If you're a reader, that might not mean anything to you, but just think maybe like Jodi Picoult, those type of people, that tends to be literary fiction. Literary fiction is different than commercial fiction, and that commercial fiction is like maybe The Hunger Games, Twilight, things like that. Literary fiction tends to be much more sort of character study, so it's a much deeper, more in-depth sort of point of view of one particular character, and on various levels of their personality. So it's a challenging way to write, and it's a challenging thing to read, and I recognize that not everybody reads literary fiction, just like not everybody reads science fiction or romance or those different types of genres. Now, the underpinning of all of, I've been given about 8 or more stories that have just sort of come channeled down through me. I believe these come from a higher source. I'm also inspired very much by my own life experience, my interactions with people. I'm a healer, and so I tend to attract a lot of people into my life that need healing, and so their life stories are interesting and they inspire me. These kinds of things are the things I'm going to talk about hopefully as the channel progresses. But because this is sort of what has inspired me as a new fiction writer, I feel like the underpinning of all the stories that I've been given is a very strong spiritual underpinning. By spiritual, I don't mean religious. So I'm not saying, oh, I'm a Christian or I'm a Buddhist or any of that. No. Just a very strong spiritual basis. So all my characters in the stories, they sort of go through a spiritual seeking, a spiritual transformation, some type of process in terms of their spiritual growth. And that's just something that's really important to me. It's a very rich dimension in the personality, and I am very much interested in exploring that. I'm just now finishing my first novel. It's about 120,000 words. It's called All Paths Lead Home. It too is a very rich, deep character study about a guy who goes through a spiritual transformation. I'm excited to share it with you. I hope that I can gain a readership of people that understand me, my unique voice, and where I'm coming from and what I'm trying to sort of contribute to the world. One of my goals is, of course, I would like to see some financial return on my enormous investment. I've been working on this particular book for over 2 years now. probably something I could have done in much less time, but because of my numerous sort of disabilities and just life circumstance, it's taken me a considerable amount of time. But I really feel like my main goal in writing is to change people's lives. I want to sort of stir people's souls, and I want them to read my books and come away knowing the characters and feeling changed by them. I want it to challenge their sense of themselves. I want it to challenge their view of how they might see their neighbors or their relatives or their friends or the other parents that, you know, at the schools their kids are going to or whatever. I just am hopeful that the struggles of the characters whose stories want to be told are going to affect people in positive ways. It's going to change their lives. The purpose of this channel is that I want to encourage other writers. I really believe in the community of writing. Now, I'm not trying to be an indie writer. My goal is to eventually get a literary agent and to get picked up by a big house publisher. That's primarily because I write literary fiction, and everything that I've read and understand about it, literary fiction is incredibly hard to be successful at self-publishing. It tends to be on the bottom of the list in terms of sales for self-publishers. So I'm really not looking to go in that direction because of that. But I still truly believe in the writing community. I believe authors are creative, amazing people, and I want to connect, and so I want to share with other writers. Although I am not currently published, I still feel like I have something to offer in terms of the writing process, so I'm hoping this channel will explore that, different aspects of writing. I'm also very interested in nonfiction book reviews, how they've inspired me personally, movie reviews. I also do screenwriting, so how those have inspired and shaped our culture and my characters and the books that are, you know, bestsellers and the books that turn into movies and all of that. I love to explore that stuff. Music, I'm very, very, you know, inspired by music, and so I'd love to talk about that in the future, as well as different art mediums, many different art mediums. Of course, traditional visual art being the main thing. I'm interested in how that inspires writers and how in turn writers inspire artists. So I'm really excited about this channel. These are a lot of the things I want to talk about. Now, real quick, I just want to go over some parameters about the particulars. First of all, I'm videotaping in my home. I live with 6 other people, so there may be moments when there's background noise that I can't control, just the chaos of living with 6 people. I also live in a neighborhood, but the street in front of me is very busy, so it's constant swooshing of cars, so annoying, traffic going back and forth. So there's probably going to be many videos where you hear that going on in the background. Another thing is that I'm a writer, like I've said, and so I prefer to actually sit down and be able to write. That way I can be articulate and I can sort of play with the words and I can make them sort of express in a more artistic way what I would like them to express. But I do have physical challenges, and so because of those physical challenges, it's actually easier for me to sit down and sit in front of a camera and talk than to sit in front of a computer and type. The downside of that is, like, I'm a talking head, I'm just blabbing, and everything that comes out is much less articulate and succinct and nice and pretty than how I would probably prefer it to seem if I was writing it. But, you know, it is what it is, and I want to put myself out there. I feel like one of the advantages of videotaping is you can sort of see me and my personality. You can hear the inflections in my voice and my body language and sort of get more of me instead of me hiding behind, you know, the pretty words that I'm pushing forward. So, you know, this is a lot more vulnerable. The other thing I want to say about it is because I've had 11 years of chemotherapy, the cognitive disabilities can be profound. So I have moments where, like, the fog, is what I call it, like the fog sort of just descends on my brain and it will hover over. I don't always know when it's going to come or what's going to trigger it, but a lot of times when I'm, like, engaging like this, that's when it happens. So I might have periods where I start to talk a little slower and I get a little bit more dissociative and I'm kind of like, what was I saying? And I get a little lost in my train of thought, and I'm going to try to edit that out as much as I can, but that's going to happen in videos in the future. I'm just letting you know. So if you're watching and you're thinking, man, that girl's really annoying, what's wrong with her? Well, I have cognitive dysfunction because of the chemotherapy. So that's what's wrong. That's what's wrong with me. I hope that you're patient, and I know I talk a lot, and so these videos, I'm going to try to make them shorter rather than longer, but I know it's hard to keep people's attention span. I'm going to try to make it as interesting as possible as my channel progresses, but I just appreciate that you've taken the time to watch this far and to get to know me a little bit, and I look forward to building community. One of the things I want to say too before I end is that I'm very, very open to constructive criticism, and what I mean by constructive criticism is that suggestions that come from a place of like encouragement and love and respect, appreciation. If you have that to offer me, I'm totally open to it. I'm still learning, and I want to learn more, and I'd love to hear your suggestions or what you have to say. If you're here to just be mean and nasty and tear me down, I'm not interested in that. I'm just going to delete those comments. I don't want any part of that. If you're here to just troll, I don't want that. I'm interested in building a community of like-minded people who can respect the divinity in me, can respect who I say I am, what I'm here for, and likewise I would like to get to know you, whether you're a reader, whether you're a writer, and also offer you my respect for your journey and your life and what we have to offer one another in an equal exchange. So if you're here for that, awesome, great, keep tuning in. I'm going to be listening to what you have to say, and if you're not here for that, then I don't know, maybe you can find something else more interesting on YouTube to watch. But so anyway, thanks for listening, and I hope you guys have an awesome, great, amazing day, and stay tuned, keep coming back to check out some of my new material. So thanks.